The smoke from the fire clouded the entire city of Los Angeles. Schools were empty while markets and stores were being raided. Men wearing blue who held badges crowded the streets to sweep them clean of the black and brown dirt. They used their sticks, their water hoses, and their canines. They destroyed homes, but they were unable to destroy the spirits. The Watts Towers are standing. I am still standing. I was born in Killer King Hospital, where doctors experimented on the poor black and brown bodies and treated us with no urgency and no security. They cut my mom open. The umbilical cord tightened around my neck the way a slithering deadly snake squeezes its prey. My mom was told that I wasn't going to make it and I would die in Killer King on October 14, 1993. My mom fought her body and she fought for me when no one else would. She fought for me just like she fought for my older brother when they left El Salvador. She was a young single mother raising a son in poverty. Her mother, my grandmother, died before she could teach her how to be a mom. My mom put Frank on her back and she started walking. She walked, she ran, she hid, she drove, and she swam to the United States. She walked away from all that she ever knew. She ran from la migra, she hid from la mara, she drove sin parar con su vida, con su hijo. She swam in contaminated waters. She fought for cada respiro. She fought for me the same way she fought for my brother. I was born in the night. I was born in darkness. My father left El Salvador during the midst of the Civil War. The Salvadorian army raided elementary schools in search of young boys, in search for my father. His mom fought for him. His mom fought herself and placed him in the back of a pickup truck and never looked back. My parents woke up in someone else's American dream. I woke up in our nightmare, but I understood that I was the American dream. Estela and Rodolfo Martínez rented a small rundown apartment in Watts, Los Angeles in 1990, and that's where I took my first steps. I took my first steps in the broken streets of Watts, but I never knew they were broken. The musical notes coming from ice cream trucks and paletero men meshed well from the police sirens and helicopters hovering over us. I heard music. My parents heard warnings, so we moved to South Central Los Angeles. The music followed us. Police sirens, ambulance sirens, pit bulls barking, gunshots firing off like celebratory fireworks. Helicopters hovering over my head like a guardian angel. My parents developed earplugs. They tuned out the music, but I soaked it all in. If I heard fighting outside, it meant that we, my family, were not alone. If I heard gunshots outside, it meant that we, my family, were not alone. If I heard police cars, it meant that we, my family, were not alone. My mom only heard loneliness, but we were not alone. I heard Detroit, the Bronx, Chicago. Before I knew it, I had the freedom to leave home. Of course, I struggled waking up at 5:45 a.m., but I did it because it made my mom feel safe. I struggled to open my eyes before the sun even rose. I struggled to get out of the warmth of my bed. We had to beat the gangsters in the crack. I became fond of school quickly because I was taught how to read and write. My teachers gave me lessons and asked our parents to help us with our homework. My mom didn't know English, but that never stopped her. I learned how to read and write because of her broken English. While she swept the floor and washed the dishes, I had to follow her around reading aloud. While she folded clothes and cooked my dad's meal, I had to read to my brother. When I read to my brother, I knew he wasn't listening, even if we spoke the same language. When I read to my mom, I knew she was listening, even if she didn't speak the same language. English was foreign to my mom just as academic writing is foreign to me. She had to adapt and learn in order to navigate through this colonized world. I had to adapt and learn in order to navigate through this colonized institution. She used her broken down English in order to be heard. I have to use my broken down English in order to be heard. But we aren't speaking in our natural tongue, so can you hear us? Si me oyes. Frank wasn't listening. He drowned me out with the whispers of money and freedom that the MS-13 fed him. They sold him their version of the American dream. He didn't read out loud for our mom. Instead, he left the house without permission and returned at dawn. It's not her fault. She was trying her best to feed her husband, teach her daughter, and protect her son while expecting her third child. It's not her fault that 1 in 3 black men in America will go to prison. It's not her fault that 1 in 6 Latino and Hispanic men in America will go to prison. She doesn't need to know English to understand that she was far from the American dream. I tried sharing a book with my brother, but that wasn't the paper he was interested in. One morning, as my mom was braiding my hair, she hugged me and she told me, "Hija, you know we didn't come here to be Americans, right?" I was startled because I didn't understand what an American was. She continued, Your papi and I came to this country so you can get an American education, but not to become Americans. Do you understand? I didn't understand, but I nodded because I was confident that I would find the answer in a book the next day. That's what I did. I read. I took control of my education and learned what I wanted to learn and what my teachers wanted to teach but couldn't. It's not my teachers' fault that textbooks don't hold our truth of American history. It's not their fault that our classes were overcrowded with more than 30 students. It's not their fault that we had to walk through metal detectors every morning to enter school. It's not their fault that the police would have random drug raids while we were trying to learn. The more I read, the more I realized that I was living in the war zone. The more I realized that I had to wake up at 5 in the morning and get ready for school to avoid danger, when other kids woke up at 7 just to beat the 8 a.m. bell. I guess you could say it forced me to wake up, to open my eyes earlier than other children. Each day in the war zone, I earned a battle stripe. One night, someone stole my stripe under the Firestone train station. I was on my way home from East Los Angeles Community College. I was carrying my design project that I spent the last 3 weeks working on, and I was frustrated. I was walking towards the stoplight, and this danger was walking towards me. We wrestled. He was on top. I took out my knife and I stabbed him, but he stabbed me before I could hurt him. His wound has already healed. Mine is still wide open. I walked the rest of the way home. I didn't want my dad to see me like this, so I stopped crying and I controlled my racing heartbeat. Home was there. No one destroyed my home, and I wouldn't allow anyone to either. I let the water run. I let it drown my cry and camouflage my tears as water. How much would a court case cost? How much would a lawyer cost? How much gas would my dad spend driving me everywhere from now on? I couldn't afford justice. I couldn't afford to feel any pain because we were all caught in the war zone and I needed to survive. As time passed by, I knew I made the right choice. I attended King Drew Medical Magnet High School, right across from Killer King Hospital. Life is a beautiful circle. Living beyond 15 years old without getting pregnant or getting shot is a wonderful accomplishment where I'm from. The first time I walked through the halls of King Drew, I told myself that in 4 years I would leave South Central because I was meant for more. I was pregnant. My baby wasn't conceived from love in a bed or with a familiar passion. My baby was conceived on the streets from struggle and fear from a stranger. The doctor came into the room with a somber face and asked, "Miss Martinez, how old are you?" I didn't understand why he just couldn't look at the chart, but I answered, "I just turned 15. He asked me to sit down and he sat next to me. "Do you have parents who I can contact? We tested your blood and you tested positive for pregnancy. Can we call your parents?" The entire room started spinning and my vision began to blur. But I asked to be excused to the restroom. He opened the door and I took off running. I never looked back and I never went back. It's not his fault that so many people are politically invested in taking away my right to choose. It's not their fault that in inner cities, Planned Parenthood is a vital resource for little black and brown girls who can't afford to feed this oppressive system another child. One day, as my parents left for a trip to Costco, I locked the door to the restroom and took a shower. I began bleeding. I got dressed. I looked for $1.50 and walked to the bus stop on the corner of Compton and Nadu Avenue. "Miss Martinez, you experienced a miscarriage. Please expect to stay for a couple more hours. I will be back. Just lay down and call for the nurse if you experience anything else," said the doctor in Planned Parenthood. On June 25, 2011, I walked across the stage to receive my diploma. My parents and brothers were in the stands screaming and crying out of joy. We went home that night as I presented my diploma with honors to my mom and dad. They cried and they held me in their arms. I think I'm close to this dream of theirs. "Dear Mommy, I have to use my mind because I could not walk across the border. I have to use my voice because you couldn't use yours. It's not valued in this country. I have to use my opportunity to fight for other women who are disillusioned with this thing called the American dream. With love, your American dream. Tu sueño americano." And now I understand why my mom asked me not to be American. She didn't want me to claim a country that didn't claim me. I live in a country where hospitals experiment and kill black and brown bodies. I live in a country where the public education system criminalizes black and brown bodies. I live in a country where the justice system cannot serve you justice if you don't have the means to pay for it. I live in a country where so many are invested in taking our only choices in an already limited system, where people are just statistics. Are you still sleeping? There is no American dream for people like me. I am wide awake. We only have the American nightmare. I do not claim to be American. I am Salvadorian.